Yo, you're watching the Screaming Fish here, people, and once again, I'm here for another video. But before we get into the video, I'd just like to apologize for the recent lack of content. This is the first video I've made in 2 weeks, and the reason that is that I've been stocked up on homework, and and occasionally it really tired me out, so I was just too tired to make any videos, and I'm sorry about that for people who are wondering why I haven't made any videos recently. However, lucky for you guys, I am back with another video, and this time I'm starting with yet another video game review, and this time we're having a look at Mad Max for the PS4. And I know you guys are probably going to be saying, wait, Fish, this came out in like 2015, but it was only recently that I actually completed the full story of this game, and I wanted to share my thoughts on this game because, one, I am a huge fan of the Mad Max franchise, and also, because I finally was able to complete the full story mode of the game. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Mad Max is an open-world action-adventure video game based on the Mad Max film franchise, which I am a huge fan of. It was developed by Avalanche Studios and published by Warner Bros. Studios. The game's story acts as a prequel to Fury Road and basically tells a story of what Max was doing before the events of Fury Road. So, like I said literally a few seconds ago, I really enjoy the Mad Max movies, particularly Road Warrior and Fury Road. All four of the current movies are some of my favourite action movies of all time, as well as some of my favourite movies of all time. So you can imagine my excitement when I heard they were making a game based off this franchise. But is it any good? Let's find out. So as per usual, we'll start off with the good. The Wasteland, which is the open world this game is based in, looks amazing. The world that's been put into play here is perfectly realised, looks visually amazing, and it even sounds amazing. The way the sun shines down on you from the way the dirt just emits from your tires when you're driving the Magnum Opus or whatever car you're driving, help the wasteland seem even more real in this game. The locations in this game also look amazing, particularly Gastown. They all looked cool, and it was really fun interacting with the various characters at these locations. And speaking of the characters, the characters in this game are pretty much what you would expect from a Mad Max game. You literally just have to look at them to get to know them, particularly characters like Chumbucket and Griffer. They also help expand the ever-expanding universe of this franchise. I also really enjoyed being able to customize Max and change the way he looks. Admittedly, the bearded Max, where Max has a beard, is a personal favourite. I also like how you had to go to various locations, kill certain enemies or destroy certain cars to get parts for the Magnum Opus. I thought that was a pretty nice addition to how the game plays. The game's opening cutscene is also amazing. It perfectly sets up the story it's about to tell you, and it just flat out tells you within a few seconds that this is a Mad Max game, and it got me really pumped up for what could have been an amazing experience. And the first few hours of this game were really that amazing experience, and they were really fun and enjoyable. And I found it really easy to get into the whole story of it. Unfortunately, as it turns out, I cannot honestly think of anything else that I found enjoyable about this game, because after a few hours of playing the game, my experience just derailed dramatically. For starters, the game has several logical inconsistencies that really take away the feel of realism that the movies have been well known for. For example, Max would get hit by a car at least 10 flipping times before it kills him, but after getting punched 3 times by enemies, he would die instantly. Getting hit by a car at top speed is almost instant death. There is literally no way that Max would have survived getting hit by a car at top speed 10 times in real life. Not to mention, Max would fall off a 10-foot cliff and survive without breaking a single bone in his body. Again, in real life, he would have a very slim chance of surviving that. One of the things I really enjoy about the movies is how crazy the action is, but at the same time, it felt realistic, and they always sustained that realism throughout the story. The game, on the other hand, just loses all realism after 30 minutes of playing. Not to mention, if this is a direct prequel to Fury Road, then why does Max look and sound almost nothing like Tom Hardy. I know it's very hard to get movie stars to voice act for video games, but at the very least, they could have made him at least look like Tom Hardy. Then it probably would have made more sense. I also didn't particularly enjoy the gameplay of the game either, particularly when fighting enemies. The creators tried way too hard to recreate the feel of the Batman Arkham games in this game, and it came off as just a rehash. There are even the same warning signs that appear over the enemies' heads when they're about to hit you, like in the Batman Arkham games. The combat is really sluggish at times, mainly due to how slow Max can actually punch. When the enemies are punching at almost twice that speed, it became really annoying very fast. I also found the enemies to be pretty darn annoying and boring in terms of design. They may vary in fighting style, but really that was it. It was either the same enemy, but with paint splattered all over them, or the same enemy but with a giant stick. The boss fights are also aren't particularly good either. The first boss fight I encountered, I just really enjoyed, and I was really looking forward to the next one, only to find that the next boss fight I fought was the exact same boss fight, just different color. And I will admit, the locations within the game looked cool, and you could tell that the creators really put a lot of effort to make it feel like you were in a Mad Max universe. But they all behaved the same way as each other, as they all had the same side missions, and you had to do the same missions you did before to win the trust of the characters who own that fortress, the same way you did before with the last fortress. And as you can imagine, that gets boring very quickly. I also found Mad Max weapons to be mostly pointless, particularly the gun, considering that it barely has any ammo half the time. And aside from the driving missions, it's pretty useless again, because it barely has any ammo most of the time. And speaking of the driving missions, I will admit, driving around the wasteland in the Magnum Opus is a pretty darn awesome experience, and fighting other vehicles would have been pretty fun as well if the Magnum Opus were controllable. And I will admit, there is the possibility that I may not know the controls that well, but there were quite a few times where I found the Magnum Opus to be almost uncontrollable, and whenever that happened, it just took the fun out of it all, and I ended up getting really annoyed. I will admit that I found the story very uninteresting after those first few hours. It started off really strong, particularly with that really awesome opening cutscene. However, if the opening scene of your game is the only thing you have going for it, and by far the best part of your game, then you, my friend, have a huge problem with your game. People are going to disagree with me when I say this, but I simply cannot find the interest in a story that is basically about building a car, and unfortunately this game spends more time on that aspect of the story instead of having a story that connects directly to Fury Road, which at this point I would have preferred. And yeah, I know having a prequel story that basically directly reconnects with Fury Road would be kind of boring, and I get that they try to add something different here, which I appreciate, but they just took it in the wrong way, in my opinion. And it's really because of the creator's decision to focus the story entirely on building a car that the really interesting moments that connect directly to Fury Road, that I found the most interesting part of the game, feel very brief. And what's worse is that the car you spend literally the entire game building just gets destroyed in the end of the game, never to be seen again, which honestly made me think building that car was just a waste of time. And that's not even counting the hilariously easy final battle of the game. And speaking of the final battle, this car chase has got to be one of the easiest final battles I've ever played. It wasn't even as challenging as previous car battles I'd been in before, where I had actually died multiple times. Those were challenging. This final battle was just way too easy, and I was just left feeling underwhelmed. And I thought that was a very underwhelming end to a video game. But it's not like the rest of it had been any better. Overall, while Mad Max PS4 does offer some nice moments that connect to Fury Road, cool customization, great characters, and a beautiful wasteland to explore, none of that is good enough to look over the repetitive missions, being there done that controls, poorly written and uninteresting story, logical inconsistencies, and repetitive and easy boss fights, and not to mention possibly one of the easiest final boss fights I've ever played. It just does not fix the disjointed mess that this game is, unfortunately. It may start off fun, but after a few hours, the experience just falls apart completely. So unfortunately, I must say that Mad Max is very disappointing, and I have to give it a 4 out of 10. So, guys, those were my thoughts on Mad Max PS4. Again, I know it came out in like 2015, but I just wanted to share my thoughts because I finally finished it, and blah blah blah. So again, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I know it's a bit weird to start the first video in 2 weeks with a negative review, mostly negative review. But I really wanted to share my thoughts on this game with you guys, and well, basically that. So again, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this, and I also would like to encourage you to follow me on Instagram. I've got some really cool. I've got some fan-made movie posters related to comic book movies that I would really like to happen. I've got some, not to mention some drawings I did on there, and some maybe possibly funny memes. I'm not gonna say any of them are awesome because one, that's boastful, and two, that's really for you guys to decide. So my Instagram will be linked in the description below, and once again, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Facebook, and I will indeed see you guys in the next one. Goodbye, guys.